Stadiums improving. We have some stadium improvements happening in the Big Ten this offseason and into the season as well. Northwestern, their Ryan Field has been demolished or has been demolished, is demolished. One is going to be demolished, one of those. And they're going to be erecting a brand new stadium. Nebraska had some large construction renovations that they were going to do. Trev Alberts had those scheduled, but the new AD plans on scaling those back a bit. I think it was like $450,000 into it, but he plans on scaling those back a little bit. And then Penn State is going to be doing some renovating as well. Andrew, why don't you start us off? Talk about some of the Penn State renovations that they're going to be doing.
Yeah, certainly. So, just a couple of the, main bullet points of this. So, the Board of Trustees just within the past week approved this job. It's slated to be no more than $700 million, which, I mean, I'm sure all of us have 700 mil just lying around. So, just pocket change. But
let me check my bag back here. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's the big, sack that just has the big dollar sign on it. Right. That's the one. But so it's big dollar price tag put on that. It's expected to finish by the 2027 season. And so, obviously there's lots of reasons why this is significant. It's a big job. The last time that Beaver Stadium was majorly renovated was 2001. And many have said over the past handful of years that the stadium is long overdue for a facelift, several maintenance and upkeep projects that need to happen. So this is basically a way to undergo a bunch of the normally scheduled upkeep items that they want to do with Beaver Stadium while also modernizing it, bringing it into this modern era of college football, obviously providing a bunch of opportunities for like corporate sponsorships and event venues. They just had a country concert at Beaver Stadium, and the return on that was crazy. So I think they're probably looking to do a little bit more of that. And obviously another big part of this that they emphasized was that they want to winterize Beaver Stadium with the anticipation of hosting college football games in the near future with the expansion and everything like that. So, I think that if I had to kind of summarize it, I'm in favor of this project. I mean, I'm not, I don't want to sit here and say that fans aren't going to be footing some of the bill. I hope that's not the case. Penn State has been pretty careful in their messaging to say that the entire project will be paid for through fundraising, concessions, naming opportunities, sponsorships, and ticket sales. So they didn't explicitly say that, there's going to be a bump in ticket prices, but they also did not deny that either. There's already been a recent bump in ticket prices, which fans were not too happy about. So if they were to tack on, additional dollars to try and fund this project, like people are going to be really upset about that, in my opinion. But, if I just from a conceptual standpoint, I think that, it looks cool. I like kind of the concept art of the renovated stadium with like that new modern shell with some of the classic stadium architecture and elements thrown in there. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think that Penn State's making a good decision here. I think that they're trying to add seats as well. PSU Mich is saying in here that they're trying to add one more seat than Michigan. I would find that hilarious if they were able to add just one more seat. And then I see Michigan like put folding chairs out or something. I don't know.
That's
just
a level
back and forth. Like
that's a level of pettiness and competitiveness that I can also get behind. That's awesome.
I love that. So I think at the end of the day, like, and I didn't explain the Nebraska one well enough. LFG's putting it in here. But Nebraska lowering stadium capacity from 90K to about 75K. I do think that is only for the years of construction. I do think that it's going to correct me if I'm wrong, LFG, but I think it's going to get back to 90K. It's just being lowered because they're demolishing part of the south end zone or south part of the stadium that they will obviously have to be working on even while games are being played there. This isn't like Northwestern where they're working on stuff and things aren't going to be played. But Zack, overall thoughts on these stadiums that are being renovated? We have some people in the chat talking about Northwestern not playing there for the entire year, and they're upset Ohio State has to play at Wrigley Field. Any thoughts on that, or Penn State or Nebraska?
Well, I think I'll talk about Penn State first. I have done concessions at Penn State, which was fun We got to fundraise for our fellowship there. But as someone who likes good food at sporting events, I hope that's part of the renovation. So I think they've gotten a little bit better over the
Flavored
past 10
popcorn.
years. Yeah,
Flavored popcorn. Okay.
but I like the idea of winterizing it because it is, especially like you get to late October, early November. It's a tough
gets
stadium
cold
to be
there.
in. Yeah, it gets very cold. And I was there, I think, for Nebraska, Penn State back on a rainy, cold. I think it was the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And great environment because, Penn State fans are great. And we left at, I think, the third quarter because I'm like, I can't take this anymore. So, but I think that, part of that's just you're in the rain. So, but I like what Penn State's doing. I like it even more if they add one more seat than Michigan. No offense, Yankee. Northwestern.
Yankee would take a folding chair in there by himself. One more. Sorry, go ahead.
Is Northwestern a Big Ten team or a MAC team? I'm trying to figure it out. And I
by
love
a couple metrics here. The line is questionable.
Yes, agreed. I love Northwestern. I loved Pat Fitzgerald. Like I love their tradition. I love the history. But when their whole strategy for
they are going to have a pretty sick stadium. Like when this is all said and done
so
with,
cool. Yeah,
this new stadium is going to be pretty amazing. It's just getting there. That's like, what are you doing?
Well, it's going to be amazing, but like for 35,000 people, like to me, I'm like, it's an amazing stadium, but why are you not expanding and selling a vision of the future? You're in Chicago. Like, I know Northwestern is not a big market. Like, it's not a big, the fan base isn't huge. But why are we going smaller? I mean, 47,000 to 35,000. I mean, and then your plan in the meantime, and this is what you're saying, JR, like, what are we doing? Like, some of our home games are going to be in the practice facility. Like this is it just screams that you're like, there are some schools that forget that they're schools, right? At the SEC is I think comes to mind. But there are some athletic departments that forget that they're athletic departments. And I think that's where Northwestern is. And I like the idea of Ohio State and Northwestern playing at Wrigley, but it felt like, I don't know, it almost feels like, hey, that's our big game is at Wrigley and it's Ohio State. Like Northwestern's going to get killed by 60 in that game. Like, what are you doing, Northwestern? Like, come on. I don't know. I
don't understand why they don't go to Soldier Field. Like,
yeah, that's
yes, it's cool that they play at Wrigley every now and then. Don't get me wrong. That's a historic stadium. And like, there's a lot of cool things about being there. But like Ohio State fans travel like crazy. Why are you putting Ohio State football in like a 25,000 person capacity stadium? Like granted, like you're saying, Zach, it's going to be only 35,000 or however much it is with what they build that's new. But like, if you're an Ohio State fan and you want to go watch Northwestern and Ohio State, like buy your tickets now because it's going to sell out really, really fast. It might already sell out. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it's going to sell out really fast because there's not that many seats there. And at the end of the day, like, I wish they would figure something out because somebody's going to get hurt in Wrigley eventually. Yeah. God forbid it's one of the Ohio State players like Caleb Downs takes a punt return back and then runs into a wall or something like that. I don't know. Like that would just completely suck. But like, I think the concept of playing at Wrigley is really cool. But at the end of the day, like football games are meant to be played in football stadiums. Like go to Soldier Field, figure something out there, play. I mean, who is it? Somebody else is having stadium renovations, and they're playing a game in Arrowhead this year. I think it's like Kansas or somebody like that. Like you're telling me Kansas from the Big 12 can go play a game at Arrowhead, but you can't get Northwestern in the Big 10? Like I don't know. Maybe Chicago Bears are just really tough to work with. They are pretty incompetent, but I just I'm not a Chicago Bears fan. But I
Funny
don't know.
enough,
What do you
they're
think, Andrew?
undergoing a stadium renovation plan too, aren't they? For the Bears?
Yeah, I think they can still play in it though, can't they?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm just saying it's ironic that, they kind of
Oh
fall
yeah.
into that same category.
What if they're like, yeah, we're gonna build something better than yours, so you can't come in here at all. You can't use anything. I don't know. I think it's weird. But I
Yeah.
definitely like what Penn State is doing with trying to winterize because there is
Really.
nothing I'm gonna like seeing more than Penn State versus Alabama at some point, or Penn State versus Ole Miss at some point up in Pennsylvania. Make the SEC actually come up here and see what it's like to have some cold weather around them. I mean, when Georgia came to Indianapolis just to play in that dome, like they were the biggest wimps ever. they were they were talking about how cold it was and it was so terrible. You got to take us up to Indianapolis, and it's like you guys have no idea. Go up to Wisconsin. Like Alabama's only going up to Wisconsin this year because it's in what, September or August or something like that. Like they're only going to go up there when it's warm. They're not going to go up there when it's cold. They're not going to replace their FCS team that they have in late October with Wisconsin or something like that because they're too scared. Quite frankly, the SEC is just too scared to go up and play in one of these northern schools. And at the end of the day, if Penn State can get it figured out and they can face an Alabama or an Ole Miss in a playoff game at the beginning, I'm all for it.
Love it too. Yeah. We came close a couple of years ago with Auburn, but that game was earlier in the season.
Yeah, so like Alabama with Wisconsin there. So